Thank you very much. First off, I wanted to start by saying that it's a real pleasure to participate, and thank you to the BAS Business Solutions team. So I wanted to maybe just start off talking about what we wanted to do in the next 20 minutes. We're not going to do a presentation of our software or go into depth about Expanded. Instead, what we thought we would do is provide you some useful information that might be helpful if you're an organization with field workers, if you're an organization that is doing installations and service in the field, and you're considering optimizing your organization either by using a digital solution to improve your field service organization. So what we wanted to give you is maybe some information, some things to consider should you decide to to try to improve your organization. Very briefly, let me just introduce myself. My name is John McDonald. I am the Managing Director for Expanded. So we are a software developer that's been in business for over 20 years. We have over 60 team members across Europe and North America. We operate in North America out of Toronto, where I'm located. And we work with a worldwide partner network of organizations such as BAS Business Solutions. And we focus on integrating to the leading ERP products, such as the products from companies like Sage and Microsoft. And as I said before, our focus is really about empowering your service and your installation staff with tools and the information they need so that when they're in the field working, they're able to serve and delight your customers. We also provide a software tool that allows your dispatchers and planners to get an overview of the work that your field workers are doing. And I'll give you a high-level overview of what that might look like. So in the next 5 to 8 minutes, I'll give you a sense of what a digital field service solution might look like. And what we're hoping is by the end of that, you see that a solution like this can help your organization, just reduce some of the more common errors that happen in the field when you're using tools like paper and pen. We think that hopefully you'll see how these sort of solutions can help improve customer service, increase and improve and lower costs, and just help your field people and your organization in general be more efficient and increase time savings. So let's get a high-level glimpse, if you will, of what a digital solution might look like for a field services organization. So the first thing that has to happen is you need to create a work order. And let me pause by saying you might have an existing ERP system, and in some cases you might create that work order in your ERP system. It might be an installation or a job that you're creating. So maybe you're going out to install a new machine. It also might be a service order. So you're going out to do service for a service item. So that work order can originate in the ERP system. However, it can also originate in a system such as the product from Expanded. So we also allow a field worker or a dispatcher to create their own work order, either in our online tool or on the mobile device. So here you see an example of how a work order is being originated by a dispatcher. So perhaps they're getting a phone call from a customer, and what they're doing is they are initiating a new work order for Northwestern Memorial Hospital. And you can see that what they're doing is they're doing an installation of a call bell system, and they're doing that work against, in this particular case, a service item. And that service item is an item that already exists in your existing ERP system. But that's the first thing that has to happen, is the initiation of a work order. And when you're looking for a digital field service solution, bear in mind that this can happen either in your ERP system or it can happen in the field service solution. The second thing that has to happen is you need to plan and you need to dispatch either a technician or a group of technicians, and maybe even some tools and some other equipment out to the job. And so what you should be looking for in a field service solution is some sort of a graphical dispatching board, such as the one that I show here, that allows you to see on one side your technicians or maybe your equipment or your resources, and then be able to schedule those, for a day of the week or for a certain number of hours during a day. So that's something that's really important because most ERP systems don't do visual scheduling and dispatching very well. So when you're considering a field service solution, a planning board or a dispatching board like the one I'm showing you here is something that you should be looking for. It really allows that scheduler or dispatcher in the office to see everything that they need all in one place and to be able to, move jobs around in real time and assign them to different workers. They should also be able to see what's going on in the field from this dispatch board. So as you can see on the top of the scheduling board, you'll see some status icons. This allows that scheduler in the office to see what's going on with their technicians without having to text them or call them or bother them when they're working. So you can see that there's the job that I just talked about for Northwestern Memorial Hospital. It's just been appointed to Luke Canaan. You can also see that there is another urgent work order that's been assigned to Martin Hansen, and so that it gives them that graphical view all in one place, and they can see what's happening in real time. One of the next things that you should probably expect in a digital field service solution is some sort of visual mapping technology. Like the planning board, this allows you to see, likely on a separate monitor, exactly where your workers are. So you can see that there's, 7 or 8 Lego figures, and those represent your field workers, where they're located. Maybe they're on a job, or maybe they're in an office, or maybe they're at home. And you can see on the left-hand side, a little signpost. That's the job or the company that you might want to assign that field worker to. So a graphical dispatch board like this, again, allows you as a scheduler or a dispatcher to, in a very visual way, look and see who is maybe closest to the job, and then to assign them to that job with a click of a button. You can also you can see the distance and estimate for the customer how quickly they might be there. So in this particular case, you can see that one of your service technicians is 63 miles away, and they could be at this job to service this client or to do this install in a little over an hour. Another thing you should look for is the ability to, for the scheduler or the dispatcher in the office to communicate in real time with the field worker. So here you can see a representation of what that might look like. So here is how that scheduler might be able to send a text message or an email directly to the mobile client of the technician doing the work. So in this particular case, you're seeing that a dispatcher is able to send a message to the technician, Robert Peterson, or in this case, John, actually, letting John know that they've had to reschedule the visit for later today, and that we've notified the customer as well on the service portal. So this highlights as well that another thing that you should be considering or looking for is the ability for the end customer to also receive communications through some sort of portal. This is becoming more standard, and when you're evaluating a field service solution, I would look for this level of communication, the ability for your team, whether it's the scheduler or the dispatcher, to communicate in real time with the technician, but also send notification messages to the end customer as well through some form of a service portal. Communication is critical, and it's what we've seen as one of the most important things in improving the experience for the end customer. The next thing that you should look for and expect is mobile access. In most cases, what your field technicians today are using is pen and paper. That's what people have been using for years and years. But you should expect that your mobile worker is able to track time, consumption of materials, create reports, communicate with the head office from an integrated mobile solution. So here you see an example of what that should look like. And in a perfect world, this mobile access should be available on any mobile platform. It should also be available on any sort of form factor, whether it's a cell phone or a mobile device or a tablet or a laptop. But this is a critical thing that you need to expect when you're evaluating a mobile field service solution. This allows that field technician to have all the information that they need on their device so that they can really get their job done when they're in the field and in front of the customer. Here's some additional examples of some of the things that you should expect should be available for the service technician on the mobile device. So on the left-hand side, you see an example of where past service history is available to the technician. The idea is that when they're out in the field, they should be able to see what has happened in the past. So in this particular case, you can see that they're out there doing service, and they're able to see that for the last 3 or 4 service calls, this was the work that was done. So that's critical. They should also be able to see the materials that were used on past service calls. The other thing that you should expect in a modern field service solution today is the ability to create reports, and I mean digital reports. I think that most field service organizations know that there's a lot of paper reports that are currently being used in the field, and using paper reports are fraught with errors and delays. So you should be able to take those paper reports and replicate them on the mobile device. So here you see an example of a checklist. Perhaps what you're doing is before you finish a job, the service technician needs to confirm that this work was done, maybe for compliance requirements. They might also want to add comments, pictures, capture a customer signature. Well, every customer that we talk to has lots of these paper reports, and the point is you should be able to eliminate paper reports and replicate them on the mobile device using a modern field service solution from a company like Expanded. So this is really the table stakes. You would also expect that your field technicians are able to record their time, also the consumption of materials in the field. They should also be able to work through specific tasks. In many cases, field workers are maybe doing an installation, and there's multiple tasks that are required to get a job completed. They should be able to work through that service order and the tasks that are assigned to that service order. And the progress should be also viewable and available back to the dispatcher, so that when a task or a service order is completed, the scheduler should know what's going on in the field. Another thing that I would say you should expect in a field service solution is the ability for a supervisor or for a manager to do approvals. And the approval solution should ideally be outside the ERP system. You might also have an approval step in the ERP solution as well, but having a preliminary approval that's available for the supervisor in the field service solution allows a two-step approval. In this particular case, you can see that the supervisor is able to see the consumption of the time as well as the materials that were used in the field. They can amend hours or amend materials that were used. This allows you to identify errors and maybe omissions and make changes prior to it getting pushed back into the ERP for billing and invoicing. The final thing is you should expect that the field service solution, once the work order is completed, you should expect that it reliably is able to inject or push that data back into the ERP system for invoicing and billing. And the view at Expanded is you should let the ERP system or the accounting system do this, because this type of structured data is best handled in a modern ERP system today. So the final thing I wanted to do is to share a few considerations, some things to keep in mind if you are considering a field service solution. So one of the first things that I would share is you should ask yourselves whether you're able to implement a best practices approach, or does your organization require some specific modifications to this approach. In our experience at Expanded, and we've done thousands of implementations, we found that 95% of businesses that we've worked with have a very similar process for their services business. And it's really what I've stepped through in the last 10 minutes. A work order is created. Again, it can come from the ERP or it can be created by the dispatcher. That gets assigned to a resource, a person, and sometimes equipment is also assigned, and that is ideally done in a visual scheduling tool. That resource, usually goes out, drives out to the work site, does the work, consumes materials, records time, and maybe creates reports. When that work order when that job is done, that worker usually decides, am I finished, or do I need to return at a later date? So that decision needs to be made. And at that point, information such as time and consumption of materials needs to be sent back into the ERP system for invoicing billing. And then that resource gets assigned to another job. So if that process seems pretty consistent with what you're doing today, that probably means that you could look at a best practices approach. At Expanded, we found that most customers prefer that because it lowers costs. And that's often what we lead with, is a best practices software solution. However, we also have a premium offering that does allow customization. So the point is, you need to consider whether you're able to adopt this best practices approach, or will you need a solution that allows you to modify it to your own practices. The next thing that you need to consider is how and whether the field service solution needs to integrate to your existing solutions, maybe accounting software or other pieces of software that you might use. So many of these systems might be kind of common accounting systems, but there's also very specific tools that are often used out in the field for doing, estimations or quotes and other sorts of things. So something just to think about. Some of the advantages is that many products are standalone and require you to expend quite a bit of time, effort, and money doing an integration to your accounting system. That, again, takes time and a lot of effort. Other solutions, such as the Expanded solutions, have a standard integration to the leading accounting products from companies like Sage and Microsoft. So the point is, something you need to consider. Will the product that you're looking at, will it integrate out of the box to your existing accounting software? Something else to think about is, where will this software technology reside? Do you want it to sit in the cloud and have it managed and have updates automatically provided, make sure the deployment is secure and safe. Those are some of the advantages of a cloud-based deployment. Alternatively, if you want to have the software reside on-premise on your own servers, you need to be prepared that you need to manage the updates, deployments, and possibly some of the upgrades. Other things you have to consider is sourcing your own hardware and technology to support that. So there's pros and cons, as we all know, of both these offerings, but when you're considering solutions, you need to consider these two options. Finally, is you need to consider what type of hardware your field workers might want to use. Many businesses today provide mobile devices to their workers. Others allow them to bring their own personal devices into the field. So that's something to consider. The other thing is whether you want to standardize on one platform or not. This is sometimes hard to do, especially if you expect your workers to bring their own devices into the field. Well, one of the things I would say is from an expanded perspective, what we found is the best approach is to look for a software solution that is device agnostic. What that means is it doesn't matter what type of device your workers are using in the field, the mobile field service works on that device. So something to consider when you're evaluating a solution. The next thing to consider is your timeline. And one of the biggest, determinants of time are whether you have an existing accounting or ERP system already in place, and whether you're just implementing a field service solution, or whether you're in the process of setting up a new ERP system and field service solution simultaneously. Maybe not surprisingly, trying to implement a new ERP system and a field service solution does introduce some additional complexity and perhaps some more time. You should probably assume that that's going to take 2 to 3 months. However, if you're just integrating a field service solution like the one from Expandit to your existing ERP system, that's something that can be done in under a month. Final thing to consider, I think it's the final thing, is how you're going to be providing services. So something just to make sure is, I would always inquire whether the provider is local and is able to support the implementation locally. And secondly, is support located in your time zone? Other considerations might be, is the solution multilingual? For instance, does it accommodate workers both in, say, French-speaking and English-speaking Canada, or Spanish speakers as well? Similarly, can the product work across different geographies, countries like Germany and California? So something to consider about the ability to support, your organization across different geographies. So those are some of the, in conclusion, some of the considerations that I would leave you with if you're evaluating a field service solutions. I want to pause here and just give you some time for any questions that might come up. But first, I want to thank you very much for attending the session and encourage you to reach out to us one-on-one if you want to book a kind of in-depth session with us to discuss some of your needs and requirements. You can see our contact information at the screen. You can call me or contact sales@expandit.com, or you can contact me directly at my email, jm@expandit.com. So it's been my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, but I'll pause to see if there's any questions.
Thank you so much, John. We do have a few questions, and I would also encourage, if you're thinking about a question, feel free to pop it in the question module. John would be probably more than happy to answer those extra ones. Give them a couple minutes. But we did have some come through. What should stakeholders be consulted when implementing a field service solution?
So just like implementing, any technology solution, you absolutely want to get input from all the different users. In the case of a field services solution, you really want to get stakeholders from, feedback from the people in the field. Make sure you get the technicians and the dispatchers involved in providing feedback and getting them engaged in how the solution would be used, because they're the ones that are going to be using the product, as we've talked about already, on a daily basis. So, aside from getting input from the business, from the people in operations and in accounting, I would really encourage you to get feedback from your field workers, from your service managers, and from your dispatch part of your organization, as well as possibly from some customers. So I would say, get out to the users of these products and get their input.
Another question is, how exactly are time and materials tracked while in the field?
I'll take time first. So time can be tracked two ways. Time can be tracked automatically. So a product like the expanded mobile solution has a timer built into it, so it automatically tracks the drive time or tracks the work time if the technician starts the timer. It's also possible for the technician to manually add time if for example, they forget to put on the timer. So that's how time is tracked. Consumption of materials is added two ways. It's usually added by the field worker themselves as they're working through the job. In many cases, it's done at the end of the task. So imagine you're working on a machine. Usually what happens is before you leave the site or the building, what you do is you add the materials that are consumed on the mobile device. If for whatever reason something is forgotten, the supervisor has an opportunity to add additional materials or time at the approval stage.
Wonderful. And the last question I've had come in is, can the field service solution be viewed on any device or just mobile?
Well, the expanded field service solution is designed to be device agnostic, because there's a recognition that in many cases many companies want to take advantage of the various form factors and types of devices that are available and have proliferated the market. So the expanded solution is available on any device, on any operating system, and on any form factor. So what I mean by that, the expanded mobile solution can be viewed on a phone, on a tablet, or on a laptop, and it automatically adjusts. It's responsive enough to adjust to the screen size of that device. I think that answers the question.
I think so.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any more questions come in, so I think this is a good spot to pause. I'd like to say thank you, John, so much for presenting and sharing all about your services.